It's time to explore one of television's most iconic science fiction action series, a show that captured the imagination of millions and left an indelible mark on pop culture, the $6 Million Man. Even if you're a longtime fan of Colonel Steve Austin, the bionic astronaut who became a secret agent with extraordinary powers, there are layers to this story you may have never encountered before. From its literary origins to its behind-the-scenes intrigues, from the delicate balancing act between serious drama and kid-friendly heroics to the numerous tie-ins and attempted reboots, the saga of the $6 Million Man is as complex and compelling as the bionic technology at its core. Let's embark on a deep, detailed exploration, unraveling historical context, production trials, creative tensions, cultural impact, and fascinating trivia that shaped this groundbreaking series. Expect a richer, more multifaceted look at a show that helped define a generation's vision of the future, turning what began as a modest TV movie into a cultural phenomenon spanning decades. Everything began with Martin Caidin's best-selling 1972 novel Cyborg. This wasn't just a throwaway paperback, it was a serious work of speculative fiction that pondered the ethical and technological implications of merging man and machine. Cyborg introduced Colonel Steve Austin, an astronaut grievously injured in a flight accident, and reconstructed with cutting-edge bionic implants that grant him superhuman abilities. The concept was electrifying. At the time, the public was fascinated by space exploration, medical breakthroughs, and the dawning computer age. Cyborg tapped into this techno-optimism and techno-fear simultaneously, posing questions about identity, humanity, and the price of survival. The novel's success spurred Caidin to write 3 sequels: Operation Nuke, High Crystal, and Cyborg 4. Each book deepened the universe's lore, exploring nuclear arms black markets and the fusion of Austin's bionic technologies with spaceplane concepts. This literary bedrock provided a rich narrative well for television producers to draw from, setting the stage for what would become the $6 Million Man. Initially, the project's working title was simply Cyborg, mirroring the novel. But television executives and marketers sought a more memorable, punchy brand for a TV audience. The eventual choice, the $6 Million Man, captured not just a number but the promise of something extraordinary created at great expense, mirroring NASA budgets and cutting-edge medical procedures. Before settling on that title, producers juggled various ideas, trying to find a name that could simultaneously suggest futuristic science, heroic adventure, and aspirational achievement. Casting Steve Austin proved delicate. The chosen star, Lee Majors, at first hesitated. The premise, an astronaut rebuilt with extraordinary powers, could easily drift into camp territory, reminiscent of the 1960s Batman series. Majors, coming off other TV roles, worried the show would take a tongue-in-cheek approach or fail to treat the concept seriously. He did not want to be part of a campy spectacle. The producers reassured him the tone would be sincere, not played for laughs or ironic detachment. This promise lured Majors aboard, and he would bring a quiet, stoic dignity to Austin, one that helped maintain a grounded approach even when Austin was ripping open safes with a bionic arm or leaping impossible heights. The show's beginnings were modest. 3 TV movies in 1973 introduced Steve Austin to the world. These prototypes lacked some of the iconic stylistic flourishes later associated with the series. For instance, the early TV movies did not feature the now famous slow-motion action sequences or the distinctive electronic sound effects that underscored Austin's bionic feats. Instead, normal camera speeds and simple trick photography conveyed his abilities. The producers had yet to perfect the visual language that would become the show's signature. However, public reception to these initial films was strong enough for ABC to commission a full series, which debuted in early 1974. As the series crystallized, its creators introduced slow motion and a signature electronic sound every time Austin used his bionics. This audio-visual shorthand allowed viewers to instantly know when Austin was engaging his extraordinary implants. Curiously, the iconic sound effect did not originally appear during a display of Austin's abilities. It first emerged in the Season 1 episode Day of the Robot during a final battle involving a robotic double, not Austin himself. These creative choices, slowed visuals, mechanical whooshes, helped cement the show's identity and separate it from other action series of the time. Majors, now settled into the role, wanted Steve Austin to be more than just a bionic powerhouse. He pushed for a portrayal that favored emotional depth and moral complexity over constant displays of superhuman power. He wanted Austin to come across as relatable, a decent human being who just happened to have these extraordinary enhancements. Alongside that, he championed a family-friendly tone. After the early episodes, Austin rarely killed enemies. He subdued them, emphasizing that advanced capabilities didn't have to equate to ruthless violence. This approach played well with younger audiences, turning Austin into a hero admired by kids who dreamt of becoming astronauts or secret agents or just wanted to run really fast and lift cars with ease. The series' opening credits remain iconic. Viewers watch a harrowing aircraft crash, which is no Hollywood fabrication. The footage is from the real-life M2F2 accident in 1967, where NASA research pilot Bruce Peterson's lifting bodycraft crashed at 250 miles per hour, rolling violently multiple times. Peterson survived, but lost an eye. By merging documentary footage with fictional narrative, The $6 Million Man instantly grounded its extraordinary premise in something real and dangerous. That blending of documentary grit and fictional heroism became a hallmark of the show's tone. Over time, fun meta moments crept into the series. In A Bionic Christmas Carol, Steve Austin visits a toy store where a $6 Million Man action figure sits on the shelf, an amusing wink at the show's own merchandise success. The character had become a marketing phenomenon, with action figures, lunchboxes, comics, and all sorts of tie-ins fueling the brand's popularity. But behind the scenes, not all was smooth. Entering the final season in 1977, Majors engaged in a contract dispute, refusing to work until better terms were met. Producers feared losing him and even considered possible replacements like Gil Gerard, future Buck Rogers, or even a pre-Star Wars Harrison Ford. Ultimately, Majors stayed, preserving the continuity of a beloved protagonist. Majors' wife, Farrah Fawcett, at the time a blossoming star herself, made several appearances on the show, adopting different roles across episodes. This not only delighted fans, but also added a layer of personal chemistry to certain storylines. Another recurring connection was the presence of Oscar Goldman, Richard Anderson, and Dr. Rudy Wells, Martin E. Brooks, characters who anchored the show's premise by representing the agency that funded and maintained Austin's Bionics. Their crossover appearances with the spin-off series, The Bionic Woman, created a television first, continuing characters appearing simultaneously on two different shows on competing networks. This unprecedented arrangement illustrated the power of the Bionic universe the creators had built, transcending the usual boundaries of TV franchising. The Bionic Woman, introduced as Jamie Summers, started as Austin's love interest, then died due to bionic rejection, only to be resurrected through cryogenic methods in response to her immense popularity. She eventually earned her own spin-off, creating an even richer tapestry of bionic storytelling that enthralled audiences. This cross-pollination extended beyond television. Charlton Comics capitalized on the show's success by producing full-color comics aimed at younger readers, along with a black and white magazine for adults seeking darker, more violent, and thematically complex stories closer to Caidin's original Cyborg vision. These print adaptations provided additional narrative layers and behind-the-scenes insights, bridging gaps between televised episodes and expanding the show's universe in ways both whimsical and gritty. As the decades passed, attempts to resurrect or adapt the $6 Million Man emerged. In the 1990s, writer-director Kevin Smith wrote a screenplay for a feature film adaptation, but it never materialized. Years later, in 2011, Dynamite Comics adapted Smith's unproduced script into a comic book series called The Bionic Man, ensuring the concept's survival in yet another medium. There were also repeated whispers of a big-screen remake starring Mark Wahlberg, tentatively titled The $6 Billion Man, to reflect inflation and modern sensibilities. Production hurdles and shifting Hollywood priorities have stymied these efforts, leaving fans in limbo, unsure if they'll ever see a new cinematic iteration of Steve Austin's saga. Despite these stalled efforts, the legacy of the $6 Million Man remains potent. The show set precedents in special effects, incorporating slow motion and sound effects to represent superhuman power in a way that's now standard practice. It influenced countless sci-fi and action franchises, showing that a hero enhanced by technology could still struggle, doubt, love, and protect others without slipping into cynical brutality. The emphasis on morality and restraint, insisted upon by majors, gave the show a certain sincerity absent from many contemporary action series. Moreover, the show carved a niche in pop culture memory through nostalgia. People who watched it as children still recall the rush of hearing that electronic sound as Austin performs a bionic feat, or the awe of seeing him outrun cars. The series reflected the 1970s cultural climate, post-Apollo, pre-digital revolution, when Americans wrestled with the promise and peril of advanced technology. It reassured them through a narrative that while technology could remake a man, it need not strip him of his soul or his kindness. On a broader cultural level, the $6 Million Man also addressed anxieties about the body and identity. Steve Austin's body, part human and part machine, symbolized an evolving boundary between biology and engineering. This theme resonates even more today as we stand on the threshold of prosthetics, AI-driven implants, and genetic engineering. The show, in its fictional way, asked, what does it mean to remain human when enhanced by mechanical parts? Is humanity defined by flesh or by empathy and moral choices? These philosophical undercurrents elevated what could have been mere spectacle into something richer, lending the series a timeless relevance. In addition, the phenomenon of children imitating Austin's feats presented a double-edged sword. On one hand, the show's producers delighted in its popularity and its ability to inspire young viewers. On the other, rumors emerged that some kids tried to harm themselves, hoping to become bionic like Austin. Whether such incidents were widespread or anecdotal, it was enough for producers and Majors himself to reach out, warning children that the series was fiction and that real-life injuries would not lead to miraculous technological reconstruction. This anecdote underscores how deeply the show affected imaginations, making some unable to distinguish entirely between fantasy and achievable reality. The theme music and iconic opening sequence have also become cultural touchstones. Aside from a cameo by the action figure In a Christmas episode, references to the $6 Million Man emerged in various commercials, including a Coors Light ad and a Mazda CX-5 spot, both of which recreated elements of the show's opening motif. Even decades later, advertising executives tapped its recognizable style and narrative to evoke nostalgia and trust. The infiltration of its imagery and sounds into marketing campaigns and comedic homages reveals how strongly the show's tropes and techniques are embedded in public consciousness. We must also appreciate the technical craftsmanship. For instance, the show's editors and sound designers invented new vocabulary for representing superhuman feats visually and orally. They pioneered stylistic methods to depict enhanced abilities without today's digital CGI, a testament to the resourcefulness of 1970s television production. Miniature sets, trick photography, and inventive audio cues turned a modest budget into a credible illusion of super strength and super speed. As the 1970s ended, the show concluded its run, yet thanks to syndication, spin-offs, and made-for-TV reunion movies, Steve Austin and Jamie Summers lived on, bridging narrative gaps and suggesting that heroism can persist even after cancellation. The return of the $6 Million Man and the Bionic Woman in 1987, Bionic Showdown in 1989, and Bionic Ever After in 1994 delighted diehard fans, offered closure, and adapted the characters to evolving cultural sensibilities. Casting a pre-stardom Sandra Bullock as a new Bionic ally in Bionic Showdown added another intriguing footnote to the franchise's legacy, showcasing how it continued to nurture future talent and evolving storylines. In retrospect, the $6 Million Man can be viewed not only as a pioneering sci-fi action series, but also as a prism through which we can examine shifting attitudes toward technology, morality, and heroism. The show dared to claim that a man severely damaged could be rebuilt into something stronger without losing his moral compass. In an era now filled with superheroes, cyborgs, and high-tech vigilantes, Austin's balanced portrayal, neither too grim nor too naive, remains refreshing. He didn't revel in his powers or plunge into darkness. He retained a sense of duty and compassion. Now, as discussions resurface every few years about a new adaptation, be it Kevin Smith's unproduced film script resurrected as a comic, or Mark Wahlberg's rumored involvement in a big-screen reboot, fans wait, hoping that a new generation can find relevance in a hero who championed decency and integrity in a technological future. But even if no new adaptation emerges, the show's legacy is secure. The $6 Million Man laid a blueprint for future series like Knight Rider, Airwolf, and even contemporary superhero dramas, all of which owe a debt to its melding of man and machine, heart and hardware. With all these details in mind, the novels by Martin Caidin, Lee Major's initial skepticism, the early movies without signature sound effects, the slow-motion technique, the NASA footage in the opener, the contract disputes, the cross-network character sharing, the spin-offs and comic adaptations, and the near-miss reboots, it's clear that the $6 Million Man was never a simple show. Its success emerged from a perfect storm, visionary producers pushing the envelope, a lead actor committed to earnest portrayal, technical teams inventing new languages of sound and image, and a cultural moment hungry for heroes who could navigate moral dilemmas amid futuristic gadgets. If you've reached this point, you've journeyed through countless anecdotes, production secrets, and cultural echoes that define the $6 Million Man. Which detail fascinates you most? Perhaps it's the idea that a show from the 1970s wielded such a profound cultural influence that kids, actually considered injuring themselves to get bionic implants, or that producers toyed with recasting Steve Austin in the show's final season. Or maybe it's the cross-pollination with the Bionic Woman, the extensive comic book expansions, or the attempts, some realized, some aborted, to resurrect the concept over and over again. If these revelations have enriched your understanding, consider subscribing and sharing your thoughts. Stories like this remind us that television artifacts from decades past can still surprise us with their complex